مديرة الوكالة الأميركية للتنمية الدولية سامنتا باور، أهلا ومرحبا بك على شاشة الحرة. ما هي رسالتك إلى القادة السياسيين في ظل الشغور الرئاسي واستمرار الانهيار المالي؟ وأيضا ما هي الرسالة التي توجهينها اليوم إلى الشعب اللبناني؟
Well, my message to the Lebanese people, first of all, is that the United States stands with them, and we see what you are going through right now. It's incredibly painful to see such a dynamic, industrious population suffering the kinds of economic pains that so many communities are going through, to see people not be able to get access to medicine, not be able to get health care, to have no electricity in their home, sometimes for weeks on end, and not to be able to afford putting a meal on the table for one's family. We know that Lebanese people do not want humanitarian assistance of the kind that I have brought on this visit. We know that this is a temporary phenomenon, that the Lebanese will get back on their feet, and this assistance is just meant to help get through this very, very difficult period. I think for Lebanese voices to continue to be raised, to never give up. There is a temptation sometimes to give up because people are so frustrated by the politicians, so fatalistic that anything will ever change, that the corruption will ever end, that the rule of law will ever really be built here. But the only way that things will change is if the people continue to exercise their rights and their voices and demand that change. For the politicians, you know, we're here at the airport in Beirut, and when I arrived a few days ago, I saw the portrait, the frame where the president's photo normally hangs. And it was a very unusual experience to come and see a frame like that, and the photo had been taken out. There was no photograph. They didn't take the frame down. They left the frame up almost as a message, which is fill this frame. It is very hard for me at USAID to attract the private sector, to attract investors, to say, hey, let's give Lebanon another look right now, when there is no president, when you have an unprecedented paralysis of this nature, when you only have a caretaker cabinet. So the message, of course, to all the political leaders is get this done, fill the frame, send the signal to the outside world that Lebanon is getting back on a path to political normalcy, because in so doing, that is the way in which the tough decisions will be taken, the tough reforms will also move through the parliament, so that the IMF can bring resources in, but also when the IMF comes, that will send a signal to the broader world that Lebanon has put itself on a more stable economic path, and that will again unlock investments that currently are not being made.
تشاركين في قمة المناخ المنعقدة في شرم الشيخ. برأيك ما هي التحديات اليوم التي تواجه العالم في ظل التغير المناخي؟
The challenges posed by climate change are quite literally existential for so many communities around the world, and for the biodiversity that we have cherished for such a long time. I think there's a question of many land areas and whether they will be sustainable for agriculture. One of the things we at USAID do is we have these innovation labs where we try to work to ensure that seeds that are coming online are resistant to heat, resistant to drought. We are working with countries also to plan for flooding, because you either have too much water or too little water in a world where climate change is wreaking such havoc. And I think clearly what you hear out of Egypt this week, and I'll be traveling to COP myself tonight, later this evening, is a cry for help from developing countries who themselves have done so little to cause the climate change problem, who are not big emitters like the United States, and who are crying out for resources to make those investments, sometimes to help people move, sometimes to help people transition from one form of economic labor to another, because maybe with climate change, a certain form of lifestyle is no longer sustainable, like being a pastoralist, for example, in very dry areas. So USAID is active all around the world, and here in Lebanon, in the food security space specifically, and by bringing solar energy to Lebanon, as I've had a chance to do on this trip, to ensure that not only do we have clean and cheap energy available to people who have not had proper access to energy or electricity in the past, but that we were able to do so in a manner that meets people and their needs right now, when the energy crisis in this country is so severe, when people are having blackouts or having no access to electricity. If you can actually build those solar panels, electrify communities, that can save money, it can save time, and above all can grant access to families to clean water and to the ability to power their phones and their lives in the way that we know so many communities benefit from.